This is the final part of my Marvel Epic Collection run-through. They're all my favourite ones. Well, basically, all of them are my favourites, but there's a few ones that are not so great, but I'm just going to quickly run through this one. This is X-Men Volume 3. This is the last part of the original X-Men. So you've got, obviously, Marvel Girl, Cyclops, etc. It's got some good stories and some very poor stories. This got one of the weakest, I think, Juggernaut stories. Really was not very impressed by that one. Also, you got this weird one here with, wasn't too particularly impressed by that one. The Warlock, as he was called there, or Merlin, and also you got other stories that was just really odd story. Also, what they did, they also started to have the origin stories. They would as if they were embarrassed with the stories that they were running. They ended up introducing these origin stories, which were fine, of course. And it was nice actually to see the Bobby Drake here looking the Abominable Snowman when you had him sort of fluffed up again. So there were some nice bits, nice touches there, because he doesn't generally do that. But you had this one, and I'm just going to... So you had this story, X-Men, Cyclops and Marvel Girl. And really terrible story, Computo and the Robot Hive. But it's sort of like they were embarrassed about the X-Men at this point. They massive title for Cyclops and Marvel Girl, but X-Men faded away a bit. So you've got another origin story in here. Beast is born. And also then you get some brilliant, though very odd, I have to say, early Steranko artwork. And you got Magneto lives. And then you go into another story here. This one, Don Heck. So there were some really odd stories at the start. Barry Windsor-Smith, I love that one. You got, of course, Marvel Girls there. Barry Windsor-Smith, again, some of his early work. So that's good. It was a great period to try out. Don Heck, I love Don Heck's work. But the stories weren't the best. However, you do get, finally, to bits where you've got the classic Neil Adams, and you've got just some brilliant stories. This part, the last part of this book, is the bit that really makes this book. Of course, there is a gallery edition just come out fairly recently, very big format, so maybe that might be more of interest than this one. But you've just got so many great stories here. Obviously, the Sentinels, Sauron, you've got Magneto, and all the way through, Khazar turns up, Sunfire story to finish off there. So you've got a very odd ending story. You've got the Hulk. So you've got the Hulk story, and what an odd... I always wonder whether they were going to do a issue 67 with a proper story, but who knows? There's even a question mark at the end when they put a comment. And so I wonder at this point whether they realised that was it. I guess they must have done. And then you got, weirdly, some from Khazar and Marvel Tales, reprint titles. So you got Jerry Siegel's Angel. Very unusual story. Very unusual one, that one. But it's just a quirky story that's really nice that they put it. Khazar 2 to 3 and Marvel Tales 30. And then you got finish off with some brilliant bonus material with some colour guides and inked pages, etc. So this one is a very unusual volume. Quite one of my favourites. However, the start of the book, I would say, is slightly not brilliant. Now, this is Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3. And there were some good stories in this, and there were some classic stories in this, because this had, of course, Goblin, the classic Goblin. Spidey saves the day, so you've got obviously there. And obviously these stories, Norman Osborn, all those stories, of course, a lot later, more importance there, but it's still pretty good. Classic Tales Romita artwork. Then you've got Rhino, he's a good character. Also, you've got a great story with, of course, Mary Jane, which is... But also the birth of a superhero, of course, Man-Wolf. Later on, but you've got Jameson's son, so that's some pretty good stuff. Again, Rhino. Also, you've got an unusual annual. Spidey faces the Mighty Avengers. Of course, he's going to join the Avengers, but does he, of course? I'm not going to say spoil it. Of course, we know what happens, so if you've followed Spidey's career. And of course, Spidey did eventually become part of the Avengers. I've never understood that bit, where I think they should have just left him in a sort of reserved position, sort of like maybe Daredevil. They could have gone out and said, well, look, we'll give you a sort of, a card that you can, or mobile phone, we can contact you. When we need some help, when the world is nearly coming to an end, we will contact you and say, look, come along, Or maybe they could meet up for a drink somewhere. Something like that, just a chat. You'd think superheroes would like to get together and have a good natter about things. I would buy those sort of comics as well. Just sitting there, well, that's a good comic. 20 pages of just sitting there, nattering about superheroes and supervillains. Also, great cover there. You got Return of Dr. Octopus and Unmasked by Dr. Octopus. So this was a 72-page special. They really knew how to do annuals then, though I must admit it wasn't the best of annuals. It was okay, with Hulk, of course. Then the Lizard. Then you got classic Shocker story, Craven. Then Vultures. You had a great story. I love this one, where you got basically Craven and the Vulture. Obviously a slightly different Vulture, but you also had the old Vulture as well. Kingpin, of course. So there's some good stories, and there were some average stories. It's got one of the worst annuals as far as I'm concerned. Really, so you got one annual, which is the Avengers story. Brilliant. Then you got this one with Wizard and Mysterio. And a parody at the end. And you got some brilliant bonus material at the back. Some lovely first sketch of the lovely Mary Jane Watson. So what's not to like about this? This is volume 3. This is Fantastic Four, volume 5. This has got some really good stories. Got some brilliant art. The artwork is superb. I love Kirby's artwork. The restoration is superb. Of course, the first story's got Mad Thinker. You got his Android. Androids turned up a few times in this. So you've got androids, and then we got Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer story, brilliant stuff. But it's got a good one here where you've got a crossover story with a number of characters. So you've got Daredevil, and it's clobbering time. Right back at you, as he says. As you do. And Spidey, of course. That was a great story. And Galactus turns up. Then you've got Galactus. And you've got, that story continued for quite a bit. And then you've got Annihilus. And also you've got the Wizard. So you've got I love that. The Wonder Glove. His Wonder Gloves. More androids. Another android. And another android, sort of, I suppose. This was one of the worst stories. I really did not like that story. You've got Crystal. You've got the Inhumans. You've got some real classic stories there, all the way through to the real classic. And the thing that I really love about this book, this is my favourite, the Doc Doom story, where the Fantastic Four go to Latveria, and of course you've got Crystal again, and you've got Sue Storm now, of course, she's just had Franklin, and you got some, got Crystal there, and then mysteriously, of course, then she calls Sue is in the storyline as well. Completely forgotten, probably. That's very strange. Must have come later in the story. Power and the Pride. Still a great story all the same. Must reread that again. Something like that was. And some superb pencil sketches again. I love that sort of sketch. I would love a book of just pencil sketches of Kirby. Be nice to an epic collection. Just pile them all in. I would buy it. I don't think Marvel will ever do that. So this one is an absolutely brilliant epic collection. Now this is Ditko, the last of the Ditko work. So volume 2 with all the Spidey stories. I love this volume. Absolutely superb. Great stories all the way through it. You've got some just classics. The end of Spider-Man. I love that story. I mean, obviously you didn't. When I first read this, when I was like 10 or 12 or whatever, I realised that this wasn't going to be the end. Well, it could have been. Suddenly, issue 18 would have been the last Spider-Man. Now, that would have been terrible. However, of course, it wasn't the case. But it's a lovely story because it doesn't really do much. It's just lots of him bouncing around, trying to do sort of thing. Even avoids certain villains as he goes around the street. But then, of course, we get the story where he strikes back. It's great. Then you've got the Scorpion. The Scorpion's always been an unusual character. He turned up quite a lot, all over the place. I don't think he's ever faced the Avengers, but he turns up in Captain America, etc. as well. You've got the circus ring clown, the clown and his masters of menace, or the circus, and whatever they were called. And of course, a disgruntled looking ringmaster there. An absolutely great story. Of course, you've also got introducing Gwen, Stacy, and etc. So it's pretty good. I love this. Again, this is another classic story. This one. the Spider Slayer or whatever it's was Spider Robot, Spider Slayer. Of course, he's captured there with obviously he's gone in and he's let me out of here kind of stuff. The Crime Master's Mask. I love that bit with, again, you've got the Spidey Robot again. My Robot lashes out. Molten Man as well. This was just absolutely brilliant. Now, you've also got the second annual, not the first annual, because the first annual, of course, Sinister Six, brilliant one, that one. But this one is still a good annual because you've got some classic Ditko, Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. Nice crossover between the two characters. And it's just classic. Fortunately, Xandu is one of the worst villains. He's a fourth razor magician, but he has a magic wand that obviously causes Doctor Strange a bit of trouble. But he realises he's like really out of his league, of course. Scorpion. Gwen Stacy, finally. Brilliant. Gwen Stacy. Loved Gwen Stacy. And I still think they should never have. Anyway, there's a couple of characters I would love to have seen. Osborn comes to mind. Removed, Harry. But not Gwen. But of course, that didn't. The Looter. The Uncanny Looter, no less. So you've got some good stories, you've got some unusual stories. I quite like the Looter. I don't know if he did turn up again, didn't he? Because he was in the Marvel Team Up issue. I don't know if he turned up ever again after that. You've got the Robot again, good old Robot. And just a guy named Joe finishes off the Ditko period, and also some brilliant pencil sketches at the back. That's just a classic volume. Volume 2, love that one. Great Responsibility, a real classic. Now, this is the X-Men one. This is volume 5. Now, there was a volume 4, which was all the in-between bit, where you had like the stories where the X-Men didn't really, well, they did exist, but they were not as a comic book. They were just going into various Marvel Team Up, etc., Hulk. It wasn't. Then, of course, we had the new one, the new X-Men. Unfortunately, I didn't buy most of these issues. For some weird reason, we didn't seem to get them in my local town. They were obviously up in London. Distribution was slightly odd, so I didn't get them. I started with the classic 109, John Byrne. Brilliant, brilliant artwork. So a lot of these stories, even though I've read them a number of times since, they're still not as familiar as perhaps some of the other ones. So I'm just going to show some pages. Storm, of course, brilliant there. You got some absolute classic stories there. Another one was Wolverine, of course, Banshee, and the Juggernaut. So you had some real good stories. Magneto. And, of course, some superb art from John Byrne, Terry Austin. I love those ones. And also you've got some other ones here. You've got Iron Fist. Obviously the story crosses over with the X-Men. White Snow, White Doom. Iron Fist story, Sabretooth. So I like this thing about Epics. Epic doesn't do it as much as some, and I wish they would do more where you have stories from other issues, but occasionally they, for some weird reason, do stick them in. And this one does have a few bits of crossover. Got Peter Parker there, Spider-Man story. That's a good one there. And this is 110, X-Sanction. And Spider-Man again. So you've got some classic Havoc there. And Spider-Man again, so just really good. But this also has got some really good bonus material. You've got some stuff from Foom magazine. I loved the Foom magazine. I would love to see an epic collection of the Foom magazine. That would be absolutely superb. Because you've actually got some X-Men, the X-Men, pencil sketches in here as well, and also some original pages showing what the ideas for some of these characters, the Dark Angel, and Comic Reader, etc. So you've got some really, so this is a really good volume. I love this one. Volume 5. Clonking everything there. Mic will suddenly collapse on me at some point because I've knocked it all over. However, this is volume 2 of the Hulk. And I love this one. Actually, I love virtually all of them, but I love them for different reasons. This one because it's got some superb Bill Everett artwork. I love Bill Everett's artwork. Also, it's got Gil Kane as well. Some good stories. So you've got a lot of leader at the start. So you've got some classic, and also Enter the Chameleon. Of course, at this point, Hulk was sharing with Giant Man. Of course, it was eventually with Submariner. Now, I would love to see a Submariner epic collection come out. And there was talk about that at some point, but I haven't seen any evidence that Submariner is going to ever come out in an epic collection. I would love to see that. Where strides the behemoth. Again, you've got Giant Man there. Now, some of these stories, this one here especially, have not been epicked. If there's such a word as epicked. Basically, Peril from the Past. They haven't been included in the epic collection yet. There's a volume 1 of Ant-Man and Giant Man. However, there's not those stories have not been back from the dead. So you've got a lot of great leader work there. Leader again. Actually, half the book is leader. Where you've got like the Ultimate Machine, the Watcher, etc. Then you've got a brilliant bit of Executioner. Then you go into the superb, and I love Bill Everett's artwork. Though a very weird looking Hulk. So you've got the Hulk there. And Hercules. Hercules turns up. And Boomerang. I like Boomerang. I wish they had continued on with that character. Of course, you've got Submariner at this point, so you've got Submariner story. But you've got good old android. There's quite a few stories with androids in here. However, these androids, these are always ultimate creatures that can destroy the Hulk and never, ever, in the end, do. We also got some brilliant Gil Kane, though I have to say the restoration work is a bit rough. I don't know why. I have to say, generally in these epic collections, the restoration, if you really look at it, restoration is superb. Silver Surfer, High Evolutionary. So you just got some classic stories. Just love this book. Now there's not a huge amount of bonus material about it. You've got a parody, and also I wish they'd put more of the original art. So you've got some original pages there. But not as many bonus items as some. Now this is a classic. This is, of course, Fantastic Four #1. Volume 1. This is where it all started, basically. Unless you turn around and say, well, maybe it was Rawhide Kid was the first issue of the Marvel Age, or maybe the Dr. Doom stories from Amazing Adventures. But everyone could argue that. Or maybe the, of course, Captain America, Submariner, and Torch period in the 1950s was really the start of it all. No one would ever say that, of course. But of course, this has got the classic Fantastic Four first issue, which has been reprinted 1,000,000 times, or 1,000,000,000 times probably. I always love this one because it's just so odd, so different from anything that really came after it, other than maybe the next story, which is the Skrull one. But you've got them out of, basically just got them in tracksuits. And it's obviously a great origin. And also the weird thing, how it splits the story. Because, of course, this period, these were monster books at the time. Strange Tales, you had Tales to Astonish, Tales of Suspense, etc., World of Mystery. But you had all those. And this sort of fits in with that. So you had this first bit where you had this monster story. Basically, they're monster characters. Maybe people thought, well, you know what? Will they ever... And I always have to point out a bit that always... I love in this, and I should say, featuring the Thing, Mr. Fantastic, Human Torch, Invisible Girl, together for the first time in one mighty magazine, which of course suggests that maybe they were separate. So there was actually a Mr. Fantastic comic that we never saw. Human Torch, of course, back in the 40s, Invisible Girl, and the Thing. Of course, the Thing did turn up sort of in many of the monster comics. There was lots of characters that looked very similar. But I always love that bit when they say for the first time. Okay. But you got some other great story, Mole. Now, I'm not a keen fan of Mole Man, and that's a sort of monster story as well. A lot of these first 9 or 10 were monster stories. Even Doc Doom, you could say it was a monster story. So, you got the Skrulls. There's a Skrull. I love the Skrulls. They could have been contenders. Well, they were contenders in the end. The Miracle Man, an unusual character, obviously. Then he did turn up again a lot later, issue 138, 137, can't remember exactly. Also, I think he turned up in probably some Marvel 2-in-1s. Anyway, who knows? Submariner story. Submariner's Revenge. That's pretty good. I love that one. What a great story where they retrofitted the story with a bit of a change later on when you had the Submariner series that came out. And I always enjoyed that. Back to the Past part. Always have these lovely part 2 or chapter 2. Never consistent. Was it part 2? Chapter 2? Who knows? But Doc Doom, battle in part 4. Also, you've got Baxter building, of course, there. Submariner, classic one where they join forces. Kurgo, now that was definitely a monster story where you've got an alien world. Puppet Master. And of course, Alicia. And then the Fury. Now, this is a Submariner story. That was pretty good as well. Actually, there were some great stories all the way through this. And this one's brilliant. The Real Doctor Doom. Great story. Doctor Doom, the transferring one. Classic. Now, why didn't Doctor Doom ever reuse that too much? I think he did later, but there was always, to me, Impossible Man. Love that film. Actually, one of my favourite stories is this one. Visit with the Fantastic... I mean, this is just worth it just for this. A visit with the Fantastic Four. And you got sort of just find out behind the scenes where they talk to us and sort of say all the various things. That's just great. Incredible Hulk. The Wrecker. Not the one that based against Thor. Then the Submariner. Puppet Master. And then you got a brilliant one with Ant-Man. And then defeated by Doctor Doom. And again, my favourite, Super Skrull. I love the Super Skrull story. That was just someone that was as powerful and obviously had all the powers, a bit like Super Adaptoid. Then also you got the synopsis as well, the first one. Also some original sort of page that was obviously not used, the cover. And some adverts and things. And it's a really brilliant volume. Love Fantastic Four Volume 1. Then you got Avengers, Masters of Evil. Great set of characters, Masters of Evil. I must admit, some ways I preferred the first set of Masters of Evil. Radioactive Man, etc. But it was still good. And there was some brilliant artwork all the way through this. So you got Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, you got Magneto, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. Of course, he never called them that, I don't think. There might be a reference somewhere saying it, but Black Panther. You got also you got the classic Avengers fighting the X-Men. Also, the Bucky Barnes' tragic death is recounted, and the one where they go and meet the new/old Avengers in the Avengers Annual. I just love that one. Also, you had the Avengers Annual 1, which is the Mandarin story. That was brilliant as well. So you got some iffy stories. You got good old Diablo. Never a mega fan of Diablo. You got Dragon Man. But you got a bit about Black Widow, a bit behind the scenes. So you got the Red Guardian as well. That was a great set of stories. And then we get into the annual. That, of course, is the Mandarin. You got the Enchantress. You got Executioner. So you've got quite a few characters there. So that's a really great little story there. Now, it's not as good as the next one. I think Volume 2, Annual 2. This is also good. I love these ones where they show the behind the scenes of the book. I love those sort of things. So, and it's sort of showing all the rooms and the Scarlet Witch's quarters, study, living area, gym, etc. Why would you have the gym on right at the top of the place? That seems to be a very bad position. You'd put the gym downstairs, wouldn't you? Because if someone dropped all those weights, and they're pretty heavy, they'd have to be reinforced really seriously, especially with Hercules. You imagine go straight through the floor. Now, that's not a great place to put a gym. Whirlwind. I love Whirlwind. Of course, he was the Human Top in the... he could have been Human Torch as well. That would be weird. But no, he's Human Top in the Giant Man and Wasp story in Tales to Astonish. And that's quite a good one. You got, of course, a brilliant Goliath and Wasp story with Whirlwind there. Black Knight. And you've got a really unusual Magneto story. I have to say, Magneto here is one of the slightly odd drawings of Magneto. I always loved the Wasp. The Wasp was great. Just all the different fashions that she was always wearing in these. It's great. Clutches of the Collector. Poor old Collector. I always felt sorry for him because he was always wasting his time trying to collect the Avengers. But that's... I mean, he's one of the elders of the universe. I mean, he's an immortal. I guess he could just spend his entire life, forever, basically, just trying to collect the Avengers. Then you got Black Panther, Grim Reaper, classic crossover with the X-Men, and the Masters of Evil. I love that story. But best bit for me is the end story. We got the new and the old Avengers, and they battle between. Obviously, it's just a superb time travel story. I just love that story. So this one, Volume 3, is just a really mixed bag, but it's got so many great stories that you can forgive some of these slightly more stories, like the Diablo one, frankly. And finally, just going to get to this one, This is the X-Men, and I love this one. And the reason I love this one is because it combines lots of different stories. So it's not just the usual run of, say, the X-Men. You've got X-Men all over the place. Amazing Adventures 11-17. So you've got The Beast. You've got Amazing Spider-Man 92, Incredible Hulk 150, 161, and so on and so on. So it's a real mix of stories. And also, not in that, this is even better because it's got a brilliant one. I love that one. Amazing Spider-Man, Iceman Attacks. You see Gwen there. You've got the Hulk story, Havoc and Polaris. And also you've got the Beast, the Bludgeoning Beast. What a name, the Bludgeoning Beast. Really? Was that the best they could think up? The Beautiful Beast? I don't know. No idea. But anyway, Iron Man Dead on Arrival. I assume that's what that course means. DOA. And I quite enjoyed those Beast stories, Amazing Adventures. They didn't last very long because, of course, then Amazing Adventures turned into Killraven. Though I loved Killraven. So when the Beast, I must admit, I always thought the artwork was always a bit iffy. Wasn't too a big fan of the artwork. Even though it's by a very good artist, Tom Sutton, just wasn't a particular favourite. Now you've got here absolute classic, now very expensive, of course, because of. Well, I assume it's one. No, it's not. It's not the first Mobius, but still, it's got Mobius' story here. I was thinking it was the first one. Of course, it isn't. That was 101 Spider-Man. This is Marvel Team Up, and there was so many great stuff. But also another thing about this book is really good. It's got the reprint covers. It hasn't got the reprints, of course. So you've got, and I collected all of these reprint ones. Maybe I shouldn't have done, but I did. So you've got that, and then you've got the Beast again, Beast, and you've got Griffin, and then you've got the Juggernaut story. Again, a very weird Juggernaut story. However, a really good one. And then the Hulk, and you've got Mimic, so that's quite nice. And the Beast, of course. And then a classic Avengers. Love this Avengers 110. There's the cover again for that one. And 110, 111. Great story with Magneto. You've got some Hulk stories. We've got Hulk twins with the Juggernaut, Moonstone and Captain America. Again, more covers. Moonstone again. And then you've got this absolutely brilliant. Yep, I love Marvel Team Up. It's another one that makes no sense why there's no epic collection for Marvel Team Up. Just baffles me. But however, quite often it turns up in different issues. So in many ways, probably all of the Marvel team-ups will be collected, but they will be collected all over the place if you get these. Also, you've got the Defenders one. Now, that didn't really feature much of the X-Men, but it did have Professor X. And then you've got the classic, of course, Wolverine story, Hulk. And you've got Wolverine's first appearance. And finishes off with The Multiple Man, which was one of the weakest stories, I must admit. But obviously, they wanted to complete it. Now, it doesn't have anything really in terms of extras other than obviously those reprints. You've got a few ads, etc. That's it. But I think it's just one of the best volumes. I loved the Essential when it came out, and the Epic Collections even better in terms of obviously its colour, whereas the other one was black and white. But I just love these sort of mixes of stories, and it's just a classic as far as I'm concerned. So X-Men, this is volume 4. So that's it. Run through of all the Epic Collections I've got. You see I've gone through. They're all mainly 60s, mainly 70s. I am picking up the occasional 80s and 90s, got them on pre-order, so at some point I will get some more of those. But I've enjoyed 60s and 70s, and I hope, of course, they bring out Rawhide, Millie the Model. That's just never going to happen. Linda Carter, Captain Savage. There's Low Pussycat. There's loads of great stories that yet Sergeant Fury, obviously, they still need to finish. I think that's virtually all of them. There's probably a Tales of Watcher and then Doctor Doom, obviously, in the 70s. So there's still quite a lot of stuff that should come out in terms of Epic Collection. And I hope they continue with these Epics. I love the Epic series. Likewise, I love lots of the completes, though I haven't bought as many of the completes as Epics. More probably 80-20 in terms of my collection. So that's it. That's 3 parts to my Marvel Epic collection, and I will go through them again at some point when I get some more Epic collections to add to the set. So, hope you found this of interest. Bye.